We all have an image in our mind, an idea of perfection that we want to fit. We have the ideas, the concepts, the beliefs of our parents, of our friends. We have ideas of who we think that we should be. But the truth is, the person who we really are is beyond all those concepts. That person is waiting to come out, waiting for the opportunity to show the entire world that it can be beyond all of the ideas of your friends, your teachers, of all the people who influenced your life to help you create the personality that you think is you. That personality is not who you really are. This is why it's important to be you. The person who you are, exactly the way that you are right now, is exactly who you need to be. All the flaws, all the sharp edges, all the things that you judge yourself for, those things are an integral part of who you are. And those flaws can actually create something much greater than you would have ever imagined. For a long time, I used to think that I was just lazy. I was in the dojo and I was practicing every single day, trying to get better, trying to eventually have my own dojo. I obsessed every single moment about practicing, thinking that any moment that I spent that wasn't practicing was a waste of time. But the truth is that there's not really wasted time, not if you're listening to your heart. A great example is one of my favorite artists, Savant. Heavily draws his inspiration from video games that he's played in his childhood, and you can hear it in his music. We all get inspired by the movies that we watch, by superheroes, by all of the things that could conceivably be seen as a distraction. And it's important to keep in mind that if your heart is centered in finding who you are, on being who you are, there's really no distractions. The way that I learned that came when I was so frustrated with my life. I was obsessing every day, and my goal was to own my own dojo, to be a sensei. And I thought that that's absolutely what I wanted. I wanted to carry the lineage of the dojo. I wanted to take this dying art into my arms and create something new with it. But the truth was that I was really just trying to fill a void that was in my life. And it wasn't until I slowed down and did the one thing that I judged myself for, which was sit down in front of the TV and watch Netflix, that I actually figured out what I really wanted to do. I sat down and I watched Chronicles of Shannara, TV show on Netflix that deals with elves and magic and all the things that I'm learning to love that I never really realized was dear to my heart. And when I was sitting down and I was watching it, the idea for my first novel came. That's when I realized that the laziness that I thought that I had, that was keeping me away from my dreams, was a lie. I was just afraid to slow down. I was afraid to get in touch with who I really was. I was looking too hard for a guru who had all the answers. But the truth is, the answers are inside. For a long time, I had two mentors. I had my sensei at the dojo, and I had Tony, who originally taught me meditation and spirituality and all of its concepts. They both had similar ideas. Have fun, don't take things too seriously, show up, and if you show up, magic happens. But they also had very different ways of thinking too. Sensei was very much about taking the difficult path, about choosing that which you're avoiding. Whereas Tony would talk about finding the easy path, to get out of the way and to enjoy life and to be joyful and to live like a child. And I couldn't reconcile the two. I thought one person had to be right or the other person had to be right. But I realized that no one's right. No one has the answers. We inside are the only ones who can find our own personal truth. So to do that, we have to listen. We have to slow down. We have to stop obsessing over our goals and banging our head against the same wall over and over and over again, expecting a different result. We need the special you, the you that no one else can replicate. Not your guru, not your mentor, not your favorite author, not your favorite artist. None of those people are you. None of them could fill the void that you have created by not putting your work out into the world. So in order to do that, you have to look inside. You have to realize that people just have small puzzle pieces of the truth, and you're the only one who can put that jigsaw together to create the image that only you can bring. For me, Tony was like the sun, obvious, powerful, radiating. Everything that he did emanated this spiritual, holy, vibrant light. Sensei was very hagakure, hidden under the leaves. You could see the love there. You could see the unity, the childlike inside, but it was covered, shadowed. You had to look for the subtle ways that he touched you during a technique where you could feel the compassion in his hands, or the way that he didn't make things a big deal when a mistake happened in class. I realized that neither one of those people is me. I'm a bridge between the sun and the earth, through the vibrant and bright and the shadowed world underneath. For me, the center was who I am. For a long time, I wanted to transcend my mentor, Tony. I saw him and I was so confused by how he could get into these deep, powerful spiritual states, why I was unable to really transcend this human reality. And my ego ended up getting attached to all these experiences that I had. Seeing him and some of the crazy transcendental things that I experienced while I was with him. Because my ego got attached, I was unable to live a happy life. I was constantly consulting my pendulum for an answer. I was constantly going to tarot cards or seeking his advice. Whereas when I started training with my sensei years later, he's very much the type to make you find the answers on your own. There was no stunning, powerful intuition where he read your mind and shattered your worldview. There was no bolt of lightning that lit you up. You had to find things on your own. Sensei talked a lot about how they didn't share things in class, how it was important to keep your experiences to yourself so people don't get attached. He dissuaded me from my path of giving advice, saying that my advice would be coming from an orange belt in Kosher Shoryu. But the truth is that I have something special to share. I realized that after I found my authenticity that this is who I am, talking about spiritual experiences, getting involved with people, helping people expand their minds, just like Tony did for me, but in a grounded way, in a realistic way. Instead of all these meditations focused on visualizations and these abstract concepts, I realized that I could combine the very martial, precise, simple meditations that came from the dojo, but bring the light and creativity that my mentor Tony brought to me. And by combining these two things, I found my own way. This is why gurus are overrated. If you can't accept who you are, follow the things that you really love, not be afraid to read the books you want to read or watch what you want to watch or anything else that lights you up, that brings you joy, then you're taking away the possibility of you being your own mentor, for you being the best friend that you want, for you being the parents you never had. You can be all those things. I surprised myself. I used to be the type of guy who's very rigid. I used to see nature and the powerful beauty of the earth and the planet, and I would look at cities and see cancer, pollution. I would be disgusted. But then I met Tony. I learned about art and people and connection, and I surprised myself by getting a job at a communications company, by being involved in sales, learning about the value of getting yourself out there. If you have something that you believe in, being able to share that, having enough self-worth to know that what you say can make a difference. I fell in love with marketing. I fell in love with content. I fell in love with business. I fell in love with technology and all these things that I thought that I had to forsake for my spirituality because they were destroying the planet. The truth is that I just had judgments. I looked at people with suits and ties and thought there's no way that they can be enlightened. But I had those perceptions shattered over and over again until I finally realized that we're all people. We all have our own special way of expressing ourselves. And if you pay attention and you look closely and you listen deeply, you'll find that even the people who seem the least enlightened, who don't seem to have what you would expect to see, will give you more than you could have ever imagined. I remember sitting across from my mentor Tony when I first took the workshop where we met and looking at his friend with his button-up shirt and thinking, what is this guy doing sitting at this table? Tony's talking about love and the universe, and he's lit up and he's ready to just explode with this spiritual radiance and share it with everybody. And I got this suit sitting here next to me, and the minute he opened his mouth and spoke, all I heard was this soft, compassionate, open, loving perspective. And that was the beginning of the end of all the judgments that I carried about how people need to live their lives. The truth is action. What are we doing? What are we showing up to create? Discovering who you are is a lifelong process. You're not the story that you tell yourself in your mind. You're not your beliefs, which I'll discuss in my next video, which will be titled Dogma. We talk more about words and how we can get attached to them. Our beliefs, our thoughts. All those things are not who you are. A great example of this is something that Pema Chodron wrote in her book, Wisdom of No Escape. When he first came to the United States from Japan, he was a young monk in his late 20s. He had been a monk in Japan where everything was so precise, so clean, so neat for a long time. In the United States, his students were hippies with long, unwashed hair, ragged clothes, and no shoes, which, by the way, is very offensive to Japanese people. He didn't like them. He couldn't help it. He just couldn't stand those hippies. Their style offended everything in him. So all day I would talk about compassion, and at night I would go home and weep and cry because I realized I had no compassion at all. Therefore, I had to work much harder to develop my heart. That monk has the same problem that we all do. When we get really developed into our art form, into our spirituality, especially our spirituality, we can get too caught up in what we believe. And because of that, we forget to listen. The more that we open up our hearts, the more that we're vulnerable and listen, the more that we can find things that resonate with us everywhere. The truth is love. Anything other than love is a distraction from that truth. We are one connected, living organism. You can see that when you look outside at nature. You can see it in the way that humans share dreams, things like the hero's journey, the archetypal model that follows all of the architecture of storytelling for thousands of years. All these things are signposts pointing us in the direction that our consciousness is not limited to just us. So if we're all connected, why limit yourself? Why limit your ideas? Why not create with what's here rather than judge and push away? I see so much of this in the spiritual community, in the New Age community, where there's all this finger pointing. You're not like me. You don't do yoga. You don't meditate. You don't do this. You don't do that. So obviously, I'm more spiritual than you. Obviously, I have my shit together more than you. But that's not true. We all have our own journey. Everyone is going in the same direction. The truth is, everyone wants to be happy. So, are you contributing by creating more joy in the world? Can you do that while being judgmental of everybody and everything that they do? I learned the hard way that that's not true. I learned that I was using my ego as a mask. I thought that everything that I said was the word of God. I thought that my practice was the best practice and anyone else who didn't do it was inferior. But it wasn't conscious thought. It was subconscious. It wasn't until I had my all is lost moment, the cave scene that's in every good story where the hero faces his shadow, that I realized that it wasn't everyone else that's the problem. It was me. It was that I couldn't open my heart. It was that I wasn't willing to see the beauty that this world has to offer. And better yet, to have the courage to create more beauty, to connect with people, to find out what was in their hearts. And the way that I found that was very interesting. One of the biggest surprise plot twists I've ever had in my life. I'm a pretty rational guy. I plan out things, I look at them, and I try and find a logical framework to get to A to Z. Well, because of that, when I got invited to go to Louisiana for Mardi Gras, I thought, probably not a good idea. I want to save money for a car. I know that if we end up going there, I'm probably going to end up engaging in recreational substances, altering my mind in ways that I don't need, spending all types of money. It's not a good idea. It's not good for my health, not good for my finances. Sounds logical, right? Well, because I've been practicing getting in touch with my body, unfortunately, there's times where my body won't let me lie to myself. And as I worked up the courage to talk to my friend, to tell him with all my logical might that I can't go, the minute I picked up the phone and started to talk, I realized I was lying. I got a pit in my stomach. I felt this inauthentic, gross feeling, and I realized as I brought my awareness into my chest that I had this really good feeling about going. So I said it out loud. Well, I guess I'm lying to myself about telling you no, so I'm going to go. And I did. It was because of that trip that I found out what I want to do with my life. I went there, and yes, there was drugs, there was debauchery, there was all of the nasty, dirty things that you associate with going to Mardi Gras. But there was also this powerful, authentic awareness that was impossible to shake. No alcohol, no drugs, no nothing could take it away from me. I showed up and I was 100% present the entire time. I was there for my friends and I had wisdom after wisdom. I had this powerful, visceral feeling where I knew I was changing their lives. I would talk and I would feel goosebumps all over my skin, and it was undeniable. I knew this is what I needed to do. So it's important to realize that the path you have set out for yourself, all these goals and ideas, they're not necessarily the way that you need to go. The way that you need to go is what inspires you, what gives you that good feeling in your heart. You have to trust that. Trust your intuition. You are the hero and the villain in your own life. You're the hero because you're constantly striving. You want to be better. But you're also the villain because you're the only thing that's standing in your way. You're coming up with excuses. You're talking down to yourself, telling you're not good enough, telling yourself that you're a disappointment, that you don't deserve love, that you don't deserve to be happy. You lie to yourself. That villain is just cultural programming. All that is all of the ancestral baggage that's been carried on from your parents and guardians and their parents and their teachers for generations. And humanity's been slowly evolving. We're getting away from slavery. We're getting away from this hateful mentality where we need to judge someone by their skin or who they want to have sex with or what clothes they wear. This stuff is starting to matter less and less and less, and we're getting closer to being connected. It's true. But at the same time, the real change begins with you. Because you're the hero. This is your story. So, what are you doing to be more joyful? What are you doing to make a difference in people's lives? These are the questions that you need to ask yourself. You have to question your beliefs, question all the things that you think about in your mind, and find what's inside that's speaking to you, that wants you to do more. But like a child, not like the obsessive person that I was who got injured trying to work out, or who was furious at himself for not being able to practice as often as I wanted at martial arts. It's got to be that child who wants to write stories, who wants to paint, who wants to create whatever life that is going to make them the most happy, because it's that light, that joy that's going to change the world. Not what you think you need, not what you think you want, but what you actually need. Freedom. I learned how to play through a meditation that I created, which is a no-go in my dojo, by the way. You're supposed to stick to the practice. This has been going on for thousands of years, or 900 years in this case. And they've been doing it this way, and this way works. Things change. I had the inspiration to create this meditation and its variants in the middle of another meditation that I was doing, and it hit me like lightning. That meditation changed my life. I breathe in, embrace being. I breathe out, release grasping, release the desire to change. Change my life, change who I am. It's what allowed me to finally love myself, to forgive myself, to be that accepting parent that I wish that I had. And then it evolved. I came up with embrace being, release expectation. Very simple meditations, but I went from an entire year of work where I was convinced I was going to quit my job, where I was convinced that there was no way I could be happy here, to feeling playful, to showing up and being okay with things not working out exactly the way that I want and making the best out of the situation. That is a warrior. Not obsessing, judging, trying to control every situation. That's not warriorship. Warriorship is showing up in the present moment, looking at the situation and saying, what can I do? How can I make this situation better? How can I be more joyful? Every good story has an ending that's unexpected, surprising, but inevitable. That's what creates that catharsis at the end when the villain is defeated or not. And it just feels right. It surprises you, but you just knew all along it had to happen. That's what you're looking for. That's destiny. Life is going to surprise you. You're going to be creative in ways that you would have never imagined if you open your mind, if you open your heart to the possibility that you might not be who you think you are. That question opens up all the doors that are currently closed to you being joyful. Doors that are closed to you having the opportunities that you want. Joseph Campbell, who created A Hero with 1,000 Faces, talks about the Jungian idea of the hero's journey, how every story has a structure. And it's all about the hero releasing their inner gift. This is what he wrote. The hero, therefore, is a man or woman who have been able to battle past his personal and local historical limitations to the generally valid, normally human forms. Such one's visions, ideas, and inspirations come pristine from the primary springs of human life and thought. Hence they are eloquent not of the present disintegrating society and psyche, but of the unquenched source which society is reborn. That's you. That's why it's important to be you. You have to release that gift. Find your special voice that only you can bring. Let go of your mentors and your gurus. Yes, listen. But listen mostly to your heart. Not to your thoughts, not to your beliefs, not to your friends, but in here. And when you find that compass, everyone's your teacher. Life is your teacher. And you can find you.